takes, that's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, stop me. 4 takes, that's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, they got me.
Well, hey guys, welcome to the Cobb and Dash show. We missed last week. There was other stuff going on, Halloween Havoc Bowl, which my team lost, sadly. It was, you should watch the game. Like I said, I'll post the link on the fantasy league Facebook page. Really good game. It came down to really the last few possessions of the game. Could have almost went to overtime. It didn't, but it was a good game. Alex, congratulations on winning the first Halloween Havoc Bowl. Not the MVP though, so it's gonna get that out there. But yeah, we were supposed to have the midseason awards. That's going to get pushed. We're probably not going to do midseason awards. We're already 2 weeks past midseason at this point. We're going to do end of the season awards this year because it's just easier that way. The week of the championship, we'll have all these different accolades that we'll hand out to all these teams who really represented this season. But I do want to start off on more of a serious note. Earlier today, there was a post that Ryan Cobb, our co-host here, put on the Facebook group, basically saying that he wants to reduce the number of the roster size, the bench size to maybe 8 or 7 bench spots, comparing it to what default leagues and standard leagues do. So I got a few things to say to that one. He's obviously, he's regurgitating what maybe one other owner or maybe a few owners have come to him about this. I made a Facebook post. I don't really use my executive privilege as being the founder of this league, the commissioner of this league, the head honcho for as many years as I have been. I don't usually right off the bat say, hey, I'm going to executive order. I'm not going to allow this. I may threaten it a lot. And I'm a pretty good sport. Anytime someone has a ruling, they want to let league talk about it. I let the league talk about it. I consider it. I've never squashed anyone. I've never said we're not doing that. I threatened it. I've got pissy about it. But I've never once said, hey, I'm not allowing this to go through. And I'm going to put I'm going to put all my hands on deck. I'm going to put all my cards on the table that I'm not allowing this. With this rule, trying to reduce the size, there's so many other things, not even so many other things. There's other things in this league that need to be addressed before we start actually messing with the structure of what a team is and what's going on in the league. There's so many other things. We got a guy who's 12th place who's done 2 punishment posts all season long. We haven't even addressed that one yet. I put flyers out about that. We're not even talking about it. I don't even know. There's another thing I brought up earlier. Buy-in. There's other weak leagues that are getting thrown at the last minute. Say, hey, let's be $175 a league fees, which Matt Hotch and David Roden started that one. And then last year when we talked about raising the league fees, they both oh no, man, I'm not doing this. But then they started the week league. They added $100 to that fucking league. It's a $175 buy-in when they didn't even want to go up to $125 last year. So those things kind of bother me, especially when I'm hearing, we need to reduce the roster size. Because guess what? At one point we did have 16 or 17 roster spots. We've kind of, over the years, we've raised them all. And that wasn't just, random. Talk about standard leagues. Standard leagues is one spot for defensive special teams. We have 3 IDPs now. And those other spots are for if you want to have a bench spot. It's not my fault people aren't using their bench spots for defense. That's what it's supposed to be for. If you want to use your bench spots for defense, go for it. So essentially what I'm saying is there's a contingency of people who don't want to change the rule. There's a contingency on that. There is actually that as far as I know there's 4 people, not including me, that don't want it. I don't want to change it. So that leaves that means there could be a 6v6 and who's got the executive order to just say who has 2 votes, essentially me. But what I can do to avoid even going into this battle of we should reduce spots, whatnot, I'm just saying right now, whatever's brought to my attention, whatever rule proposal is brought to my attention, it's going to be shot down, executive order from yours truly. So curious to see how that goes over with a lot of people in the league. So sucks to suck, but 20 is where we're at. 20 is where it's going to be. So with that being said.
Whoa. Hold on a second. I appreciate the feedback. I made the post. Good hat there. First off, we have addressed the Stu thing. We got after him on the last show we had, and he did make a post. He said it was coming with him to Iowa. Haven't seen a post yet since. I think that's a problem that needs to be addressed, obviously. Everything else that needs to be addressed, hey, I'm for upping the buy-in. Any other rules, they should be brought up to the forefront. That's why I brought it up. Hey, if it's 6-6, that's fine. Then it doesn't go through. I was bringing it up to start a conversation, and I think Paul just brought up this might have been one of the most discussed posts in the group, and I thought it was a good timing right before the show so we could talk about it. And I'm not trying to get this league to go back to a default league. We're not going to be a default league. We never have been, never will be. All I'm saying is that there was a problem when we added 2 spots for IDPs that hasn't been addressed, and I think the waivers system right now just kind of takes away from the competitiveness of the league. That's my stance. I think people should hear it out. If it ends up we're not getting the overwhelming majority, it doesn't go through like the rules state, that's fine. I think it should still be discussed. I want to see what everyone else thinks. That's why I brought it up.
Well, but also to piggyback off that. So in a 2 year, so I think the last 2 years have been the worst as far as we've seen with waiver wires. That's because of COVID and people utilizing more IR spots. And also Yahoo's changed their IR spot policy where it's like, even if a guy is ruled out for a week 9 game, like he gets to be an IR, that was never a thing for the last 2 years. That's a new thing. So people are utilizing the IR spot for guys who are out, and that's like, I mean, I can't do anything about that. That's a Yahoo thing. So like, I can't do anything about that. But that's only been really an issue. We're starting to see the waiver wire dwindled even more so because the utilization of more IR spots. You know, even I know Paul went and like scoped out a lot of people's like teams yesterday, as I called out 3 owners yesterday, you being one of them. That people are utilizing their IR spots for guys who really aren't on IR, or, you know, just using IR spots that they shouldn't be using. And this is more than that. So, and I think Paul or someone said it on that post. What if we just Olympics? COVID's going to be around next year as well. There's still going to be, you're going to still see guys who are out for COVID. And I think that's just something that in the new normal that everyone's living with and working with. It's okay. That's what's going to happen. That just becomes another injury. And really that's what we have, that we keep the one IR spot and we go back to what we did 2 years ago. It's one IR spot. It's used for COVID or it's used for an injury. You choose. I think that'll mitigate. I think that'll mitigate the problem that we're having with Paul texting me at midnight, telling me to look at these teams, and then this whole waiver wire priority. That I'm fine with.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming into the league this year, we didn't think COVID was going to be as big of an issue as it was, like needing that many IR spots for COVID-related players. So if we want to change it to IR as either IR, like being out, being actually on IR, PUP list, or COVID, that's fine with me too. Like I'm not saying, like, we can add that as well. Like that's another good proposal.
Yeah, and that would just go back to what the original rule was. We had one IR spot, and that's for, you can use it for your COVID guy, you can use it for your IR guy, whatever.
And just to reemphasize, you can't use IR. You can only use IR for one person that's actually on IR or out. The rest are COVID related. Just make sure we keep an eye out for that. That one is actually the thing that's penalizable for $10. But yeah.
So that's where I leave it there. I think we don't have to adjust the bench, the whole roster size. If we get rid of 3 IR spots, I think it takes away, because think about it. Most teams are utilizing at least two or three, at least one more IR spot than they would have 2 years ago. I think most teams are actually doing that. So yeah. And I think by doing that, by only making it going back to one IR spot, people are either going to not use their IR spot or they're going to just use one. And that's just takes maybe 12 guys off the waiver wire. Whereas now we're looking at maybe the likes of 24 guys off the waiver wire spot right now with the IR spot. Because right now you can toggle with it. And the one thing I can't say is that I cannot help is if a guy's out for you and they allow him to be on IR, you can put him on IR. I mean, there's nothing I can do unless we say, we make a rule that you cannot do that. Because that's the one new thing that's happened with Yahoo that was not foreseen, was the fact that you can change a guy who is an out for a Sunday game and then he becomes an IR spot. Because that's a new thing, and I don't know what to do with that one. But we can outlaw that as well, which I'd be on board with, because I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, I'm actually looking, and there's only 2 teams that have more than one IR in use.
More than one IR used.
Yeah.
And how many of those guys are either injured or COVID related? Can you
only the 2 that have more than one IR, they both have someone on COVID.
Okay.
It's me and Paul. Okay. So
yeah, I would like to say though.
Hold on. And how many of those guys are actually on IR or PUP, or they're actually just out last week and they're just leaving them in that spot. Because I think if we get rid of that, I think that will free up more people.
Okay, that's still only 2 teams. I mean, my guy that's in IR is still the guy that's on COVID still has COVID apparently, and Paul has Nick Chubb and COVID. So like everyone else isn't just stashing people there. I was just checking that. So it's only 2 teams. So that's 2 players added to the waiver wire. That's nothing.
Okay, but so there's only 2 teams that are using IR spots in general, is what you're saying?
No, that have more than one. Like IR, everyone else has either no one on IR or just one person on IR.
Okay, but the people who do have the one IR, and I'm just asking, I'm not trying to get an answer out of you that I want, but are those people who have are using an IR spot, are those people who are actually legitimately on IR, or is it a person who is out? It's just out, like, like Corey Davis was out for you, and you could put him in your IR spot if you want to. Like, you know what I'm saying? Not a person who's actually on IR. It's a person who was just out last week, and they can be put on IR.
Right.
Because like J.K. Dobbins is IR, but that's not the same as like, I don't know.
I didn't really, when I just quick glance, I didn't think anyone was doing that. So like a lot of people come off of, when they're off of COVID, usually it's by Wednesday or Thursday, they get off of it, other than like someone like Aaron Rodgers, who the fuck knows, but yeah.
Well, that's something we can talk about in the offseason, but as of right now, if that 20-man roster stay here to stay. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm pro keeping it how it is. I did, bring up, the suggestion that you just mentioned, just going back to how it was before, just one IR spot. And that might be able to alleviate some of the concerns of, the rule following and, people calling people out. So I'm in favor of that. But I will say, people are complaining about the reason why some people are saying that we should go to 7 bench spots, 8 bench spots instead of 9 is because the waiver wire depth there's not that many, the talent's not that great out there. I will say this also, some people haven't had that many great waiver wire acquisitions this year because they're not utilizing their fab correctly. And that's an advantage of fab. You look at someone like Paul, Paul was decimated with injuries this year again, 2 years in a row, yet he was able to, I know he lost some games, but he's had a lot of big waiver wire pickups. And you look now, he's got $0 left in fab because he went crazy at the beginning of the year, made sure he got all the big name guys, from each week in waiver wire. And there's obviously, you can look at the fab in our league. There's some people who still have $80 left, $70 left. So, people are complaining about not having, not being able to get some of the good guys on, on the waiver wires, yet they're not being disciplined and they're not trying to use all of their, fab money. And so I think if some of the managers, and the owners in this league just had a different strategy going into, how am I going to utilize my fab, they wouldn't be complaining about, not having, bench depth because they would be able to get the guys that they wanted. So that is something to mention, in terms of, rebuttaling, the thought of there's not enough, depth out there.
And to me, what's funny is the same people who were crying about making this league a fob league or having some kind of waiver wire, some kind of waiver wire structure instead of free for all. And I miss free for all. I wish we could have free for all back. Those are the same people who are complaining about bench size now. It's like, oh my God, well, what the fuck do you people want? So
yeah, I don't think those two are related at all, but you guys can go ahead.
Well, I do think a little bit some people were against open waivers because they don't have the time to sit and watch every single game and just sit down and be on top of it. And those are the same guys that are a little bit more inactive. And those inactive guys are the guys that aren't grinding on fab and aren't using all their budgets. So like the same people that were complaining about not having enough time and not putting enough time into open waivers are now the people that aren't using all their fab and aren't, they ended up being the losers of the rule change because now you have people like Paul Perga-Beasley, he's on open free, Wild Wild West free agency. He was dominating everything on Sunday, and you just allowed him to spend more time to analyze pickups and put more money into it. So I think just the more active owners are really winning that side of the rule change.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Anything else you want to say before we?
I mean, there's no point. So let's just go ahead. Let's get to what the show's actually about.
All right. Okay. So the long-awaited week 9 results. We didn't do week 8, so we're not going to go into that. We're going to start with week 9. And you know what? Since Cobb had a big mouth this morning, we're going to let Cobb start off here with the first place versus the 4th place matchup. And that was my win and claiming rightfully first place again in this league. Against Matt Hotch.
Yeah, with pleasure, man. Yeah, no, I mean, this was a highly anticipated matchup. We weren't able to preview it on the last week's show since we weren't able to have one. But I mean, what a stinker it ended up being. I mean, 2 top 4 teams. You expect more from them, but I think both are they're just happy to have last week behind them. Dash got out with a win. He now is in sole possession of first place because I was able to defeat CP. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think overall week 9 was just a weird week across fantasy. I think a lot of teams scored pretty low scores. The Kansas City stack still kind of slugging along. But obviously, like we keep saying on the show every week, there's better weeks ahead. Still kind of waiting for that. I mean, there's been a couple blow up spots, but I mean, scoring under 100 with that stack it's always kind of eye opening to see. But still, Dash was able to get out with a win. Hotch made the big move to take Burrow and traded Brady away. That kind of bit him in the butt there with Burrow getting under an 8. And you're not really going to win when your QB is getting you under an 8. Aaron Jones got him a 5. CeeDee Lamb got him a 3. I mean, Jamar Chase got him a 7. Like, just kind of a weird week all around. So, I mean, not much else to say on this matchup. It was just a pretty gross slugfest. I do think the better team ended up coming out ahead, and Hodge should be happy that he's still in 4th place. He's still in a solid playoff spot, but scoring this low that late in the season got to be a little troublesome with other teams right behind him trying to catch him in points for.
Yeah, anytime you can win scoring below 100, especially in 2021, it's pretty lucky, and it's just a grinder. So you know how to win in the fall or the winter months. So so next one I'll take is Cobb's win over CP. CP, who has pretty much been 1 or 2 all year long, has finally been dethroned by someone who has been in the top 2 for the last 2 years. And we've been waiting for CP to kind of fall. His team had been scoring pretty much 85. I mean, I think CP's gotten around this maybe a few times this year where he's actually won a game where he's scoring below 100. And so he's been sneaking by, and he finally played a team who doesn't really score below 100 often, if at all. I think maybe once this year you have, but overall you don't really score in this kind of territory. You kind of put it on him. Everyone kind of played well. Mixon played well. Kamara played well. Dalvin, all your main guys came to play. You didn't have your quarterback, and you still scored 128. I just think really not much to see in this game, just more so CP's kind of returning back to where we kind of expected him to be. I know he's still at 6-3, but this is kind of where we expected him to be, kind of going towards this kind of decline as we move towards the season. I mean, you're not going to play guys who score 110 every week, so that just doesn't happen in the Basement League Plus. Kudos to Cobb for squeaking out a win without his quarterback. And now Alex, talk to us about, we did the 4th place game where it's okay. DK's Dollar Bills losing to Adam Milowich, and I lost the bet with Cobb. And I've already paid him up. So.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely an interesting matchup just because, there was so many high stakes, regarding Adam's team to finish the rest of the season. And, thankful, I'm sure Cobb's thankful that he got this win, because after this week, as we all know, he just basically traded away Dak. He basically threw in the towel. And I was talking to him at the Halloween Havoc Bowl. He said, man, I want to win once. I want Dash to pay up that 20, and then I'm going to rebuild. That's what he told me. So he got his win in, and he got out of town. And also, he just traded away Najee Harris to Paul as well, for obviously Derrick Henry. So, I know he's got Derrick Henry, and AJ Brown as potential keepers next year. Maybe Bateman. Ooh. But yeah, I think after this week, I really think he's not going to win a game the rest of the season. I think he's okay with that as well. Getting the first pick and everything. But yeah, I mean, in terms of this actual win, you just take a look at Ruben's stack. And when you have a stack that, again, combines for 21 points, and this is supposed to be a top 2, top 3 stack, it's going to be hard to win games in general. And then, obviously he had a couple guys on bye, and, no one really picked up the slack on his team. And so it's tough to win a game there. And I think, you take a look at some of the starts that Adam had, and it's kind of like, you probably aren't going to see Tim Patrick at a 15 again. You just go down the list, and it's just even like just random guys that he had. even AJ Dillon, who he had to start, who's a backup running back, got double digits. So it was just kind of the best. It was the best case scenario for Adam in this week. And yeah, I truly do think, and I think he thinks as well, that he's done for the year. He wants to secure up. I think he's fine taking the punishment as long as he gets the first round pick next year. And we'll see what he decides to do in terms of keepers. But with that first pick, obviously he gets, he's going to be able to have AJ Brown, Derrick Henry. Maybe he can trade for someone else and then, send them back, do some type of tricks like that with the first pick. So, he's looking to rebuild for next year. But yeah, it was a good win for him. Glad to see him at least get one more. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that game.
Yeah, good for Adam. Okay, so next matchup is another one I talked about. CP, having that slide. He was top 2 all year. Another guy, our co-host here, Alex, was top 2 all year, and he's on a 3-game slide right now. And he ended up losing his last game to Stu, our Tomato King, our reigning Tomato King. So, Cobb, talk about our Tomato King.
Yeah. 1 second. It was kind of the same old we've been seeing. It's been a pretty gross slide for Alex, I think. I mean, gross as in like since Russ has gone down, it's been pretty unfortunate. He clawed for the first couple of weeks, but then it just kind of caught up to him. Thankfully, Russ seems to be back, but he also just made that big move for Dak. We'll get into when we go into the week 10 projections. But yeah, it was just a unfortunate week again. Cooper Kupp got that late touchdown, I think, late in the game, where he just got peppered in targets actually at the end of the game with Staff. I think he had a pretty low scorer output until then. And then on the other side, Stu had Herbert finally returned to true Herbert form. He'd had a kind of a slump for the last couple of weeks. Stu was probably kind of worried about him trading off Jalen Hurts, wondering if he made the right decision on trading the right QB. But obviously, I think we all knew that this was how it's going to pan out. Herbert and the Keenan Allen connection, especially when Keenan Allen get those sleeves on, it's one of the top stacks in the league. So between those guys, you're getting over 50. That's a good show for Stu. The one question mark with Stu, it's just his running back situation continues to be a mess. He was hoping Mike Davis would be the guy, wasn't the guy. You got Jeremy McNichols in there as the guy at this time. Got him a 6, not the guy. Kyle Pitts kind of slacked, but he was able to come out with the win for Stu. And at this point in the season, I don't know if Stu's happy with these wins or if he wants to, be kind of on the lower side of the standings, because he's getting these wins late. But I think he wants to stay maybe in that like 2 to 3 pick spot. So we'll see what his team's able to pull out. And Alex, not much else to say, obviously, other than what's already been said. I think he has brighter days ahead, especially with his team coming back to full strength. He's in sixth place right now, but if CP drops, he's going to jump up in the standings. And then, there's so many teams in that 5 to 4 and 4 to 5 spot that can make a serious run. I think Alex will make the playoffs regardless. So, I think it's just time to move on and put the three losses behind you.
Yeah, and also your triple stack at a 41 between 3 guys, solid. But you got rid of one of those guys in triple stack, so no longer triple stack for you. Okay, so the next matchup is a guy who I likened his fantasy season to Michael Myers, like just doesn't fucking die, like he continues to live. But I don't know. I don't know how he does it, but Paul, 4-5, he's in the 7th seed now. He beat Roden 146 to 124. I thought Roden was actually going to win this game. But yeah, somehow Paul continues to win and score high points too. So obviously Paul lost Derrick Henry. He ended up trading Derrick Henry this past week for Najee Harris. So we'll see Najee Harris in his lineup with Jonathan Taylor. No Nick Chubb though. So he gains Najee Harris, then he loses Nick Chubb this week, which I think Nick Chubb will not play this week. I don't know if they haven't ruled him out yet, but it doesn't look likely that he's going to play. Even with his quarterback getting sub 20, a receiver getting 1.4, he still managed to score 146 on the back of the Thursday night game with Jonathan Taylor, and then followed by Nick Chubb's 32-point performance on Sunday. Kind of tough to beat a guy when you have 2 multiple 30-point scores on a team. That's just kind of the thing. I know talking about rule changes. I know people think I'm I'm allergic to rule changes, but I have been talking to not Paul, Hotch, and we are going to make a little rule change with the bonuses given to running backs going over 100 yards. Just because we're seeing that the 100-yard bonus, just getting over 100 you shouldn't be getting bonus points for that. I have to look at my conversation with him, but I think we're going to leave it at 125. And I think we may even lower receivers a little bit to kind of allow kind of a, comparable, bonus for structure for running backs and receivers. But again, yeah, Paul, that rule's in place right now. And Paul is really taking advantage of it by going to get these high powered running backs. Gotta give him credit. He's still in the playoff picture. He's probably going to get, realistically, he'll probably get in the playoff picture. I don't see him not getting in with his team, but I got to give him credit going out and trading for Jalen Hurts, going out and trading for Jonathan Taylor, going out and trading for Najee Harris. I mean, and Kadarius Toney, which I think was a terrible trade for him, but his team is it's a solid team. And that's all a guy who's, putting all his efforts and all his eggs into one basket for this season. I think a good equivalent to Paul is the Rams this year. I think Paul's the Rams of this league, obviously with the worst record, but like all his eggs are in this basket for this year. I don't know if he's trying to capitalize on this 100-yard bonus that we'll have for this season only, and he won't have it next year, and so it might lessen his chances. But he's all in, and gotta give him credit for a guy trying to advance his team, even when his team should now. I think he was 2-4. Or if you're 2-4, you shouldn't be like on the prospects of making the playoffs, and he's going to. I think he's going to make it. He's definitely one of the best teams, and he's done so much to try and make his team as good as it is and suffering all the setbacks with injuries. That Paul's a team to be reckoned with, and he's not going away. I will root for him to lose again this week, but he's not going away. We'll all get into Paul later on in the show, but last one, Alex, talk to us about. I think that's it, right? We did all of them. No, last one. Kale Fraud and ZT's fantasy team. Talk to us about that forgettable game.
Well, I mean, yeah, the interesting thing about this game, we had talked about Barry's team is, being a potential playoff team this year. I think we were all hopeful. His roster looked pretty decent in the beginning of the season, and he was kind of sitting there in that like 5-6 range for a while. And then I know he's dropped a couple, and he's sitting in a tough spot right outside the playoffs. But, and so if you're Barry, you're thinking, okay, yeah, maybe I can sneak in here, but you got Paul with the same exact record. You're not going to overthrow Paul for that guy to sneak in. So if someone outside of the top 6 were to sneak in, it's Paul right now. So Barry's season is looking like it could be over at this point. I know he's got a tough matchup against you, but and so obviously going against the 11th seed team in ZT, this is a game that Barry needed to win, needed to capitalize on. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers gets ruled out with COVID before the game, but obviously, Big Ben putting up a 20. I mean, there's not too much more you could ask for from a backup. So, overall, I thought it was fine. When you look at the game, he lost by about 20 points, and that was really the difference in the QB play. Lamar pretty much beat him by 20 points there. When you look at everything else, it pretty much balances out between the flexes, IDPs, starting running back and whatnot. And so, maybe you could make the argument for Barry that if, Aaron Rodgers had played, maybe he puts up like a 40, or, maybe he throws a touchdown to Davante Adams and that stack goes off. And so, for Barry, it's really, Aaron Rodgers kind of cost him this game. And like we said, you live and die by the stack. Aaron Rodgers, not too good press right now in the media. And so, that ship's kind of, sinking right now, just as much as Barry's sinking. And so, I think we all know that this is the last contract year for Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And I think this is going to be the end and the demise of the GB Stackers. So we'll see if he just does a complete rebuild and rebrand next year. But yeah, I think he's done.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll get into that in the next half of the show. So that does it for the week 9 recap. Now we're going to go to the week 10 preview, and we're going to start off with our number 1 seed. Cobb, I'll let you take that one away. You got Barry's, we just talked about, versus Barry's pickup lines. So
I mean, a good transition. I think Dash already won this game. We were talking about Dash already won on Thursday night, which is the opposite. Usually it's been the Thursday night blowups that we've been seeing, like, with Fournette. And then there was another one earlier in the season. But I mean, how long is Barry going to start 2 tight ends? Like, I don't know what he's thinking with this roster build. There's been a lot of ramblings that he's been pretty adamant about not making trades. He has some pretty juicy pieces, especially for teams that are he's in a good spot where he can trade with teams that are not going to make the playoffs and ones that are in the playoffs, because both sides he has some guys that people would want, and he either needs to sell a season or go all in. If you like, he's got to make up his mind. If he's just floats in the middle like he's been doing, I mean, he's not going to do anything. So it's just not being productive. I mean, he had Gesicki get a 0, Gaskin get a 5. I think most of his 5 came on one play. And then he has to start. I'm just gonna assume that Rodgers is coming back, so he will have that stack. That's going to be the make or break point for Barry to make this even a little bit competitive, because they are going against Seattle and their secondary sucks. Eckler has a really good matchup against Minnesota. And then, DJ Moore hasn't really been DJ Moore lately, but with the new Cam Newton news, I'm thinking that might boost his value a little more. I don't think we'll see Cam Newton much Sunday. I heard maybe in special packages, but Barry has some glimmer of hope, but I just think the 5 total points on Thursday night it was just a nail in the coffin. We're still waiting. I was talking earlier, we're waiting for Dash's stack to blow up again, be consistent. Divisional matchup, I think this is a good spot for it to happen. But we'll see. I mean, top to bottom, Dash's has a much better lineup. We don't need to dissect it much. I mean, that stack alone could just beat Barry this week, based off of how he started, if Rodgers doesn't play. But I'm going to go with a pretty sizable blowout here. I'm going to go 153 to 117.
Alex?
Yeah, so for me talking about this matchup, I'm going to use my 90 seconds here to continue my rant about Barry's team. I mean, yeah, in terms of this matchup, though, I think it's over. But it's interesting. Barry has a championship in this league, obviously, but that's well beyond him. That's many years in the books. This league's kind of evolved to being this, the addition of Fab, the addition of bench spots, all this stuff that people are trying to take back. It's what's made this league special, and it's what's made this league, really, a manager's league, and you have to be active in order to win. And, just to have a great draft and come in with a great season is not enough at all. We've just seen so many teams, change up throughout the season, and, owners and managers just try to, better their roster. And so when you take a look at the league standings and you look at the amount of moves that have been made, look at the 2 top. Paul's in the 70s. I'm in the 60s in terms of moves made. Barry's sitting at 13. He also has 70% of his waiver budget. So that just tells me that he's just not being active. And you look at his roster starting 2 tight ends, you would think any owner in that situation would be scrambling to use their fab to try to find a replacement. I know we've been talking about, limited, players at the moment, but he's been stuck with this double tight end set for weeks. And if you go back to weeks, there's been AP, there's been a lot of key guys that are startable and are season savers. And he was, his season easily could have been saved if he had made a move. And you can even go look at fab offers. He hadn't put in any offers on any of those key guys. So just a little bit mismanaged right now, and kind of a head scratcher right now. And quite honestly, the fate of Barry in this league, in terms of his reputation's, at stake. And so we'll see how he responds to this, the rest of the year and in the off season.
Yeah. So in looking at Barry's team, one of the, I think his first round pick was David Montgomery, or second round pick was David Montgomery. He played last week, and all signs pointed to him playing Monday night, and he left him in his IR spot, and he's still in his IR spot. And I get he's on a bye week right now, so why not leave him in the IR spot for one more week? But you could have played him last week. I mean, probably wouldn't have done anything, but like you could have started him over one of his tight ends, or one of his other bench guys, or one of his other guys who started that. So I don't know.
Does he have an open bench spot too?
Does he?
Yeah, I think he does.
He does.
Wow. Well, I think that answers our questions as to if Barry is done for the year. I think so. He really took the whole stack thing to heart. Like, just because like Rodgers is quitting on his team doesn't mean you have to quit on your team, Barry. Okay, you don't really have to do that. Yeah, just I think last night seeing a 5 between 2 guys, and they were not defensive guys, because like I'm happy with if defensive guy gets a 5 for me. Like that's probably at the floor. 4 or 5. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But three below, that's awful. He got 0 from one of his starting guys, and he got a 5 from one of his flexes. I mean, it's not a good start. And to say I won on Thursday night without like any guys playing and the other team just faltering, really, it's good stuff. Just gonna say this. I think the stack could be a big blow up spot. Just looking at the last time the Chiefs played in Vegas was last year, I think November last year, I believe. November 22nd. So almost a year to the date when we played in Vegas. Mahomes, different. It's obviously it's not the same Chiefs team from last year. Pretty much the same guys, but obviously if you guys seen us play, it's not the same team. But Mahomes had 348 yards and 2 touchdowns passing last year against the Raiders in Vegas. And both those touchdowns went to both my guys. Kelsey had 8 for 127 and a touchdown. Tyreek had 11 for 102 and a touchdown. So if I get anything close to that, I'm going to win. But I'm right now, the real battle for me is this week. It's not the winning aspect. It's the fact that I need to beat, because this year we have the total points for the season. And I'm on, I think 38 ahead of Cobb right now. So I want to be able to keep that up. So I need a big bounce back for my team after scoring 98 last week. So for me, more so than beating Barry, it's the scoring a lot of points. So I'm hoping the Chiefs, and I'm going back to a triple stack. I'm taking Darrell Williams out of my lineup, although I think I might put him back in. I don't know yet, but as of right now, I'm not putting him in the lineup. So I think the triple stack could give me what I want. So hopefully that happens. So I'm going to go 178 to 109 as the score for me and Barry. Yeah, I like it.
That's a big one.
Yeah, just based on his vibe between two guys last night, I can't not think,
Feeling good.
All right. So Alex talked to us about our guy right here. Cobb's he's got his hands full this week. His matchup between him and Paul Perker Beasley, a guy who has just transformed his team each week. Talk to us about that one.
Well, there's a couple things. First off, I just got a Adam Schefter notification saying that Nick Chubb is officially ruled out for Sunday. So that takes care of the question marks of him coming back. But that was pretty much, we all expected that with him, testing positive. I will say that this matchup has a lot of implications. And one weird thing in this league in particular, compared to seasons in the past, is when you look at the standings, I know that you two are at the top and, right now, but overall, no one's really pulled away. Everyone's within a game of each other for the most part. And it's pretty interesting. And we've talked about Paul making, this run and him lurking. He's right behind me in the standings. And, obviously I feel good about my team going forward, but either way, it's just really interesting. There's not much separation between the top and even like the 7th place team. And so if Paul were to win this week, it just makes everything, so crazy going down the stretch. After this week, there's 5 games left. After this week, there'll be 4 games left. And so there's just so much that's going to be up in the air if Paul were to win. And so, if Cobb pulls this game out, you could start to really see what the playoff picture is going to look like, start to see some separation and, kind of things go to normal. But Paul's trying to make it as chaotic as possible. So, anything can happen. And obviously, we know on, Cobb's team as well that he's got some questionable players. Kyler Murray might not play. So, going through this matchup, I think it's going to be very close. Overall, Hurts versus Kyler, I don't know if Kyler's going to play. I'm going to call that even because I don't know if he's going to play. I don't know if he has to plug in Colt McCoy again or what he's going to do. But I'll call that even for now. Amari Cooper, Julio, I'll go Amari Cooper. I'll definitely go Najee Harris. I'll call tight ends a wash. I don't even know if Kamara is going to play. So overall, I'm going to give that to Jonathan Taylor. I'll give that to Dalvin Cook, and then I'll give that to Robert Woods because I don't think OBJ yet is going to be a factor in that offense. I think give him another week. So this is extremely close. For me, what this game comes down to is if Kamara and Kyler Murray play. If both of them play, I'm giving this game to Cobb. If one of them doesn't play, then it's 50-50. And if they both don't play, I'm giving this game to Paul. So this is really a toss-up. So it's kind of hard to give a prediction for that. I'm gonna play on this. I'm just gonna assume right now, if we're going just off the lineup that's in here and everyone plays, I'm gonna go Cobb in a close game. But yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that are going to, happen with this game in terms of, the status of those players. So definitely check in on Sunday morning and see the predictions, and everything could change. But yeah, I think either way, it's going to be a really close game.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a close one. Just by the way, Paul's been pulling out dubs, and Cobb's got himself in an icky situation. I mean, I wouldn't be happy starting Cole McCoy 2 weeks in a row. I know he did all right with like 18 last week, but like, I don't know, when a guy like Paul who scores 140 pretty easily, it's just a matter of if you're gonna have a blow up week versus his 140. He's got Najee Harris and Jonathan Taylor, so those are two guys who could potentially get 30s easily. So it's going to be interesting to see where this one goes. But I think it's pretty fitting between Paul and Cobb playing this week. You have a little bit of a rivalry going on. Paul calling out Cobb for storing guys in his roster, which shouldn't be on the IR spot anymore. Also calling it ironic that Cobb's the one making comments about decreasing roster size and upping waiver, the guys on waivers, the value of them, because, just ironic because this guy wants to take it away, but while he's holding guys in IR spots that shouldn't be in IR anymore. So I love the rivalry that's going on between you two. It's a newfound one. And the rumors there were that Cobb called him a rat. I don't know what that's about and how we got to that point. But yeah, I think it's great. I think we love feuds in this league, especially feuds that don't revolve around the same old people. I feel like it's rivalry week. Chiefs are playing the Raiders, but I feel like I feel like myself. I feel like I'm in every rivalry there is in the basement league. I feel like I'm a part of every rivalry, so I'm happy to see other guys kind of taking the mantle of different rivalry games being taken place. And Cobb and Paul is the new one, Perkabisi versus Cobb. So I think since this is a newfound rivalry, I think Paul's going to win this rivalry game. I think he's taking the rat comment to heart a little bit. And I think he's upset about it. He's an Italian guy. Italians don't like being called rats. I mean, that's one of the first things. That's one of the first advices they're given when they're coming out of the womb. They don't like being called rats. Cobb shouldn't have gone there with Paul Perkabisi. Because of that, Cobb's gonna be sleeping with the fishes this week. Paul wins 148 to 129. Perkabisi.
Yeah, I think we're at a little danger of going back to the TMZ days that you guys were on when I was off the show. You guys can try and make up a rivalry that doesn't exist. I like Paul. I think we're on good terms. I did just watch The Departed a few days ago. It's a pretty good movie. Might have had some influence, but no, I mean, I'm just gonna go to the matchup. That's what we're supposed to talk about. I mean, there's no denying that I'm in some trouble here. I mean, Paul texted me. He was like, we might talk about if there's ever been two teams going up that have this many injuries or this many question marks going into the game. And it's a mess. I mean, Kyler might not play. Damian Harris might not play. And I was like, oh, I wonder who has Brandon Bolden. Paul has Brandon Bolden.
That's where this whole roster size thing comes into play. Paul's got everyone's handcuffed.
Yeah, sure. Kamara is looking like he's not going to play. I was just looking up some news. Sean Payton said they're making game plans without him. So I'm going to assume Kamara's not playing. Kyler Murray practiced today, but apparently he's a game time decision. And on Paul's side, I mean, Najee Harris apparently hasn't been practicing, but I think they're just trying to be, cautious about him. Julio Jones is allegedly not going to play this week. I'm hearing rattling that they're thinking about shutting him down for the season. That might be rough. But yeah, I mean, on any other week, I'd be pretty comfortable with my team coming into face Paul. He lost Derrick Henry, but then he went and traded for Najee Harris. And then, Nick Chubb's out, but then Kamara's out. And then Mixon's also on bye. And then Damian Harris is also probably going to be out. Like, it's just, every step I gained on Paul this week just continue to kind of like drop down or like just kind of go away. I think it's going to be, I'm hoping that Jonathan Taylor slows down a little bit. If Kyler Murray doesn't play, I'm probably going to have to play Carson Wentz, which I'm not psyched about since the Jags defense just shut down Josh Allen. I'm still going to stick to my guys, say that we're going to win. But I think if we win, assuming that Kyler and Kamara doesn't play, also for this sake, I'll say Kyler does play. I'm going to say, like, I need this to be kind of like a slugfest, like a 128 to 121 victory for me. So that's what I'm going to call, because that's what I need.
I will say I just made that trade for Dak. Now I have 2 QBs. If you need a QB for this week, hit my line. You get this that Amari Cooper Dak stack. You get the Russell Wilson. Could be key. Let me know. if you want to win.
Joe Mixon for Dak. Deal.
Yeah, for
Not right
Alex.
What'd you say?
I said, yeah, Alex would smash that accept button.
You want him? He's yours.
So, yeah, you know what? And after looking at this one, I think this is the game of the week, by the way. Just based on all things that are going into this one, this is the game of the week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of implications. I we were talking the other day after this week. I mean, Paul plays everyone. Like, I think he plays Barry, who's right below him, but everyone else, I think Paul plays is right above him. So he can shake up the whole playoff picture as he stomps through, like, as we get towards the playoffs. So it's gonna be interesting to follow. Hopefully I can hold him off for a little bit. But we'll see.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Paul's one of those teams, man. I mean, and that's the thing too. You lose this game, you go to 6-4, you kind of drop below, and obviously it depends on whatever happens to people below you. And then Paul goes 5-5. Then we're at like kind of a standstill. It's 5-5 and 6-4 teams all in the from 2 to 8, I guess. But okay. Next matchup, Alex, talk to us about. That was a 3 game. Okay, Mr. MIA. And this is another good. This is a game that could be up there with the game of the weeks based on the seedings. But I talked to us about Mr. MIA and DK's Dollar Bills.
Yeah, I mean, this is, and again, I was mentioning how close all the standings are, and obviously we know that CP was sitting in first place. He even had a game lead, or a game and a half lead. He was solidly in first place for a while. But again, everything's so tight right now that he just wasn't able to pull away. If he loses this week, he falls all the way down to 6, assuming that I beat Adam, which I should. Pretty easy matchup there. So yeah, he loses this game, he falls all the way down to 6, and so the tides are shifting and everything's just it's just kind of crazy right now. So this is a big matchup for both of these teams, especially knowing that Paul Purda Beasley, if he wins this week, he's scratching at the door to get into the playoffs, and he's ruthless. He'll take down anyone. And so any of these teams, even with CP being in first place for so long, he loses this week. All of a sudden, Paul's 1 game back, and Paul wins, he loses, he's done. And there's 4 games left. So after this week, so both of these teams need to win. It's once you're kind of in that 4 to 6 range right now, even like 3 to 6 range, it's a must win here on out pretty much every week, because no lead is safe in terms of securing a playoff spot. So this actual matchup, it's going to be kind of interesting. Obviously, Josh Allen, they're looking to bounce back after a bad week last week, and no team better to do it than the Jets. The Jets really aren't a great team, so that stack could definitely blow up. Just kind of diving into some of the other matchups. Obviously, I think Diggs is going to get more than an 8. Cordell's been good. I think that kind of balances out with Henderson. Tight ends is pretty much a wash. Let's see. If Kamara's out, Ingram's going to have a big role, but I think DK I'm going to call that pretty even. CMC, I do think though, he was on a limited pitch count last week. He's at full strength. So I think he really takes that over. I think overall, because of CMC that he ends up winning the flex battle. CP wins the flex battle, but I think with that stack, that wins kind of the top heaviness. So I think what it's going to come down to really is Josh Allen versus Stafford, which it often does. It often comes down to the QB play. So who's going to have the better game there? I'd say more than likely Josh Allen does. And so I'm going to give this game to Ruben. But overall, I think that this will be it should be another really close, hard fought matchup. And of course, with Stafford playing on Monday night, he could easily come back and win the game, especially if it's, 30 points or less. At that point, it's anyone's game. So I think it's pretty close to the toss up. You might have, I don't know how you feel about it. You might have some other opinions, but I am going to go Ruben. And I think those predictions are pretty close. I'm going to go like 130. Yeah, those are really close. I'm going to go like 130. We'll go 142 to 137 in favor of Ruben.
Yeah, I'm also leaning Ruben for this. I don't think the Bills stack has been what he's been hoping for, that he shelled out so much for in the offseason. But I just think they're going to have their weeks. I'm going to bet that this week comes against the Jets, divisional matchup. I think they're going to want a statement game. A lot of people are saying that they're done, they might not even win the AFC East. I think they still will, but I think it'll be a statement game. I do think Josh Allen and Stafford, it's going to be a really good battle, but I think Josh Allen is just going to edge out Stafford. Just because I think it's going to be one of those weeks for Josh Allen. Ruben needs Mike Williams to bounce back. I think this is a good spot for Mike Williams to bounce back in. And then, CP obviously has CMC. So if CMC comes back to being what CMC has been, I think CP has a really good shot. I think Ruben, regardless, is going to edge him out here. I'm going to go like 137 to 134, Ruben.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Ruben. I don't think it's gonna be the quarterback. I do think Stafford's gonna win that Josh Allen Stafford Bowl, just based on what the Jets have been doing to opposing teams' quarterbacks. Jets have been worse against the stopping the run. That's been kind of the thing they haven't been good at. Passing the ball, they've been pretty middle of the pack of that. So I don't see really exploitation of that. I could see Zach Moss or Singletary having a big game in that game, but overall, yeah, I just think Ruben has a better team, and I think that CP's team's already on decline. I just think it's going to continue that way. The Mark Ingram start, I think he's going to start him regardless. If I don't know if he's. I'm not going to comment on who's on his bench, but I just think overall the high power team, it should go to Ruben here. I think Ruben should win this game. Very close projections here. I'll go Ruben. Also, Ruben wins this game. You got CP went from undefeated, 5-0 at some point, or 4-0 at one point.
Like that, yeah.
And then going to 6-4. Ruben's 6-4, and who else? Who knows what other teams are going to be at 6-4 at that point? So, the playoff standings are going to be very interesting this week. Very interesting this week. But yeah, I think Ruben wins. Let's say 147 to 123. Yeah. Okay. Next matchup is make Hotch great again, right? Yeah. Make Hotch great again versus Hotch's unstable connection. So I'll talk about this one. Obviously, I think Hotch is going to win. It's a better overall team. But I am rooting for Stu. I'll just let my bias be out there. I am rooting for Stu. I want Hotch's team out of the playoffs, just like I want Paul's team out of the playoffs. I want both those teams to be fighting for Tomato King, or not fighting for Tomato King, but I have a better draft pick. I'm rooting for him. But yeah, overall, there's outside of quarterback, I think this game is in Hotch's favor. He had a 16 from Andrews last night. His kicker got a 10. Jesus, Patrick Queen got a 10. He's in a good standing right now at a 147 live projection. But yeah, overall, that's just a better team than Stu's team. Stu obviously has a stack with Herbert and Keenan Allen. So it's a good week to play Hotch. He doesn't have Burrow and Jamar Chase. So in that respect, it's a good week. But the fact that last night he already started off in such a good with 36 between three guys, I think that definitely leads Paul's or Hotch's way. But there could be room for a comeback here with a stack, but I do think Minnesota's going to win that game, so I could see that stack really not doing anything this week. But let's just, I think Paul, I think, Jake, keep going to call him Paul. I think Hotch wins, and I think Hotch wins 148 to 120. Yeah, I think it's a blowout. Yeah. Alex?
Yeah, I was going through it, and it's tough. I think that, I do think Herbert has the ability to have a really big game against Minnesota, and obviously the Tampa Bay, passing defense is really good. So, if Stu was to win, he would really need Herbert to outscore Heineke big time. Just like last week where he had 20 plus points. He won the QB margin by 20. That's what Stu's going to need to win this game, because looking at every other matchup, it's tough. Obviously, I think Keenan Allen can cross out CeeDee Lamb. I think that Thielen can outscore Jefferson. I think it's plausible. And I definitely think DeAndre Hopkins can outscore Javonte Williams. But just between Swift, there's just some more consistency, throughout his roster. And of course, he already had that really, really good Thursday night matchup where every single player outscored their projections. So he's going to need, for Stu to win, he's going to need all those matchups that I said that those players have the potential to beat, their respective opponent. He's going to need that to happen, and he's going to need a big game from Herbert. But I definitely think that I don't think this is going to be the biggest blowout of the week. We'll get to that maybe the next game. But I do think that Hotch should win this game. He's definitely favored. I'll go like a 15-point win for Hotch. I'm going to say like that's not 145 to 130 or so. I'm going to go in favor of Hotch. But of course, if Herbert blows out Heineke, then I think it can become a coin flip if that happens. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think Stu, in order to win this game, really needs Herbert to blow out Heineke, which, I mean, it could happen just based off of the matchups. But outside of that, outside of Stu's stack, I just don't think he has the firepower to compete against Hotch, because if you have Herbert and Keenan Allen going off, that probably means Justin Jefferson's going to go off on Hotch's side. And then, I mean, again, Hotch's team, top to bottom, is just better. So I'm just not much else to say other than what outside of what you guys have said. So I'm just going to go Hotch here. I think projections are pretty close. I'm going to go 152 to 122.
All right. So next matchup, Cobb starts off here is Colonel Sanders versus Big Berry Sales. That could be a blowout.
I had to rub my eyes a little bit to make sure I was seeing this correctly, that he still projected to outscore his original projection, which is just at 114. I've never seen something that low or score that low. So thank you, Adam. Just want to say right now, thank you, Adam, for winning last week, giving me that $25. Thank you, Dash, for paying that up already. But I mean, I don't even know what to say about this game. I mean, he set out to trade all of his pieces to move on to next year. He's locking up that Tomato King this week, or he locked it up last week, but he's officially, and maybe we'll get to the Tomato King rankings a little bit, but I don't even know where to start with Adam's team outside of AJ Brown. I like just a bunch of backups and like second options. I mean, it's gross. But I don't think he really cares. Again, he's moved on to next year. This is a perfect game for Alex to get right. 3-game losing streak. I don't think he could have asked for a better matchup especially with someone like Paul right behind him, trying to fend him off. So regardless on if Paul wins, Alex should still keep that 1-game lead in a pretty big fashion now that he got Dak, Cooper Kupp, Zeke, Waller, James Robinson, assuming he plays, and now James Conner. Now that Edmonds is out, I mean, James Conner is probably an RB1. That's great. I mean, I was not a big James Conner fan coming into the season. I thought Edmonds was the guy, and I thought Kyler Murray was going to be running. And I was kind of true. Kyler Murray didn't run as much, but Conner continues to get the touchdowns, and now he gets all the looks. So he's in a big blow up spot for the next couple of weeks. So Alex's spot should just bounce back perfectly and should potentially end this year on a winning streak. So not much else to say. I think Alex handles Adam insanely easily in what I think Alex was alluding to, the biggest blowout of the week. I'm gonna go Alex 165 to 100 for Adam.
Yeah, you kind of said it yourself there, but I mean, the fact that Rashad Bateman scored 11 last night, which that's pretty solid. I mean, I wouldn't have guessed that. I would have said, oh Jesus, because I mean, Sammy Watkins played. I mean, everyone played who was supposed to play. I mean, because I think
he got more snaps than him. I think
Duvernay, yeah, and Duvernay also carries the ball and he also returns the ball too. So I mean, yeah, Bateman at an 11, it's pretty solid. I mean, if I'm watching that game and Bateman got an 11 and I'm Alex, I'm like, Jesus, okay, well, it's not good, but I should still win this game regardless of that. I mean, he's starting Alex's one of Alex's. The reason why Alex lost a couple weeks ago, Donovan Peoples-Jones, guy got a 0 for Alex a couple weeks ago, and Adam starting him against Alex. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones can actually have a big game this weekend. And it'd be kind of funny to have him outscore what Alex had when he started him a couple weeks ago. But yeah, there shouldn't be anything here. I think, I think it should be a blowout of the week. I do like the projections they're giving you, but I think you might score a little more than that, to be quite honest with you. Although Atlanta's defense plays in spot duties, they play well. And Dak hasn't looked that good, but I think based on the way they played last week, I think he'll have a good week. Either him or Zeke will have a good week. But let's just go with I think Alex wins safe 160 to 120, because Rashad Bateman got at 11. I'm going to give Adam a little more than what his projection is. 160 to 120.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously I have myself winning in the blowout of the week. I'm really not too concerned about this, matchup. I definitely want to talk about my team a little bit because obviously, that 3-game losing streak is not something that you want to go in. You want to happen to your team, especially towards the end of the season. But for my team's sake, one, when Russ went down, I won my first 2 matchups with him out. It was 5 weeks, I think, with him out, and then I lost my last 3. And so I was dealing without a quarterback, and I went through all of my bye weeks. All of my starters already had their bye. Cooper Kupp is the last player on my entire roster, even with IDPs and everything. Cooper Kupp has his bye week next week. Outside of that, everyone went through their bye week. So I at least, I know I lost some games and that was rough. But looking forward, I have pretty much everyone done with their bye weeks. I now have a new quarterback. Everyone's healthy. Obviously, pretty much the best case scenario has happened. I got a new quarterback. Everyone's done with their bye week. Chase Edmonds goes down. Now we're looking at James Conner as being a potential RB1, fantasy wise, a top 12 running back for the next, 4 weeks or so that he's on IR. So that pretty much the rest of the regular season. And then if you take a look at my bench, I might even start him this week over Renfro. CEH, who I traded for, obviously, with Roden. I believe that was like 5-6 weeks ago. He went down like right before I ever had the chance to start him. So he actually has never been in my starting lineup. CEH has. And so he's someone that if he doesn't play this week, he'll be starting for me next week. So you're basically looking at my starting lineup and plugging in a healthy CEH for Renfro down the stretch, the last 4 games, assuming I win this week. So I think everything's trending in the right direction for me to make a good push. It'd be tough to get a bye week. I mean, obviously anything could happen, but I'm just looking to secure a playoff spot, especially with, Paul, right on my ass, just securing a good playoff spot, especially if I win this week and CP loses this week. I'll be up a spot in the projections and in the standings. And then also, just having everything, working well, firing on all cylinders for the last 4 weeks, not only making the playoffs, but going into the playoffs hot and looking to go on a win streak once the playoffs start. So I think everything's looking good for me. And yeah, this is definitely a good matchup to kind of get everything going moving forward.
But you'd agree if you lose this game, you're in trouble, right?
Yeah. If he somehow pulls this off, I'm in a lot of trouble. But yeah, with everything, my team trending in the right direction. I think that it's a pretty good matchup. So I'm not too concerned about this week.
I mean,
I'm more so tuning into that Cobb and Paul matchup because if Cobb can take care of Paul this week and I can win, gives me a 2-game cushion, going into the last, 4 weeks of the season. So I think for me, I'm more concerned about, Cobb taking care of business this week. So
yeah, I mean, and I think between Stu and
Barry,
Stu and Cobb taking care of business this week.
Yeah,
it makes me feel better about maybe Hotch and Paul missing the playoffs. I mean, I'm looking long term right now. I maybe should be looking ahead, but I think Barry is right next to Adam. I think it's one of the worst teams in the league. So like, I think both those teams, if you're playing those teams, I think you have a more than 90% chance of winning if you have a decent squad on the table. But yeah, CEH coming back for you at the right time. Would you be willing to part ways with CEH or no?
I would for the right price. Definitely would. It just depends who it is.
Someone like that quad stack wants to keep it going.
I do like the quad stack.
I might see.
And plus, I've been looking at people like the dog CH, but I was thinking about the other day that I saw someone on one of the Chief accounts I follow, like Mahomes' yards per game when CH play versus when CH isn't playing. And it's like obviously night and day, even though I think Darrell Williams is a better overall running back, but there's got to be something tells me when CH is playing and Mahomes is playing better. Obviously there's a difference there. So
I also, this is the first week the entire season that I'm predicted over 150 points. And I also have the highest projection for week 10, which is, I like to see that for my own stuff. It was kind of weird. I was winning all those games and I was projected like 135 every single week. So I'm glad Yahoo kind of, caught up to kind of my vision and everything. But yeah, I'll do right now live on air, CH for Fournette straight up.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah. All right.
I'll do Josh Jacobs for him.
Ooh, I'll have to think. I actually might do that. I'll have to think about it though. We'll talk after the show.
All right. Okay. Okay. So actually, finish us off, Alex. Last matchup of the week. ZT's fantasy team versus David Roden.
Yeah, let me pull it up here. Yeah, so obviously, I think at this point, with three wins each, I think both of these teams are done. I think they're both out of the playoffs. I think that Roden kind of made it interesting. He had like a 2-game win streak, and he had a decent roster, and people were like, "Ooh, does he have what it takes to do it?" At this point, he's at a certain amount of games back with only 5 weeks left. I'm gonna go ahead and say that both of these teams are eliminated from the playoffs. And so I think it's a weird spot for both of these teams to be in, because typically when you're looking like, okay, I'm done for the playoffs. Well, I don't want to be Tomato King. You don't really have to worry about that, in my opinion, with Adam's team. I think that it's pretty much a guarantee that I really now, especially with him trading away Najee Harris and trading away Dak, that he's not going to win a game the rest of the season. So I think for these teams, you don't really have to worry about being Tomato King. You don't have to worry about, you're not going to make the playoffs. So it's like, what do? Do you just, I guess you try to rebuild? I don't, it's kind of a weird situation to be in, but yeah, I mean, just diving into this actual matchup, I don't know. It's going to be tough. Obviously, Lamar didn't have a great game. Waddle pretty much, it wasn't bad, whatever, an 8. It's not that bad, but, kind of looking at everything, Antonio Brown just got ruled out, so he will have to plug someone in. Let's see who he's got on his bench. Yeah, Edmonds is out. I assume he'll probably put in Ayuk. Ayuk's been playing pretty well. So I think he'll plug in Ayuk for Antonio Brown. But yeah, looking at these matchups, I think Brady has a good game, definitely gets more than a 17. Mike Evans, he might be one of the main receivers right now, especially, with Antonio Brown out. I think Godwin's even a little banged up. So I think he'll definitely outscore that projection. Everything else, pretty even. I do like, yeah, this is tough. I have this actually extremely close. Man, this is really tough. If Brady doesn't have a blow up game, if Brady gets less than 30, I say that ZT pulls this off and wins. But I think that's what the deciding factor is going to be here. If somehow Lamar's 17 can compete with whatever Brady puts up, I think that the rest of the players for sure on ZT's team take care of business this week. So I think it comes down to that. So, I mean, to play it safe, I'm going to go ZT here just because, he just has more players that he can rely on to win this matchup. So I have this kind of low scoring and not a blowout. So I'm going to go 127 to 123 in favor of ZT.
Yeah. I'm also going to go ZT here. I think, like we were saying, I think he wanted a little more out of Lamar this week. I know Dash was celebrating Lamar having a kind of rough game, but still to pull out a 17. I mean, that's for how terrible that game was. I think ZT's got to be happy with how it ended up being. Like if you're going into halftime, you're begging for 17. So not bad on ZT's part. I think this is going to be a potentially close game, closer than the projections lead on, I think. But I think ZT overall just has the stronger top to bottom team, with Kittle looking back to what he normally does. And I don't like the Gibson start against Tampa Bay. I don't know other options ZT has, but I do like it a little over Michael Carter, maybe pretty even. But then again, Deontay Johnson, Michael Pittman, McLaurin, I like over the other guys Roden has. So I think Roden's going to stay down at the bottom. I think ZT is going to hop him in the standings here. With the win, I'll go 128 to 123 ZT. I think it's going to be pretty close.
Yeah, when I was looking at the doing my Tomato King rankings, these are two teams that was kind of like neck and neck for for certain spots because they're very similar. I think these teams are both looking at these teams. These aren't bad teams by any means, and I really think that. I really think that both these teams are solid, and I think in a perfect world, one of these teams would be in the playoffs. And I think if ZT wins, whoever wins this game is 4-6. That's not out of it. It's not out of the run at all. So, I think, but top to bottom though, I like ZT's team. I know you mentioned Gibson. Yeah, I mean it's still better than Michael Carter against Buffalo. I take Gibson all day against Tampa because at least Gibson can actually get 2 checkdowns. Carter does get some checkdowns, but overall that's a better team that ZT has over there. But Lamar getting a 17 last night really opens the door for Roden. I think Roden's team has been pretty solid all year. And the fact that ZT has this team, he's 3-6, kind of surprising. It's a solid team. But yeah, I think ZT wins. And I'm gonna go. Let's go 130 to 120, 10-point game. ZT wins. So, yeah. So okay, well now we're gonna go to everyone's favorite segment. We're gonna go Tomato King. The Tomato King rankings for week 10. So, roll the video.
I don't like tomatoes and I don't think they like me. I wouldn't say I hate them and they're not my enemy. We do our best to coexist by staying far apart. I don't like tomatoes, they always make me far too unhappy.
Tomato King time. All right. So we're the back half of the season. I know we see the first part of the year. I was going to go just my rankings. So given that, we're going to go roundabout. I'll start off with my Tomato King for the 7th spot. Then you guys give your 7th spot, and then that's how we'll do it. Okay? That cool? All right. Okay, so we're going to begin with the 7th spot. My 7th spot is Christopher Patrick. I've been saying it all year that his team was a pretender. I love CP. This is not personal. This is fantasy. It's not personal. I love CP. I just didn't love his team. I like Stafford. He got him late, but the team they built around wasn't solid enough, and he was getting to squeaking by with 117, 115 like point wins. Like, that's not something that doesn't last. And as we saw, it's not lasting. He scored 85 last week. You're playing guys like Cobb. You're getting towards the end of the season where teams are starting to really come together. It's not gonna. You can't win when you score 115, and especially not even make the playoffs. So with that being said, I think CP loses this week. He's going to get closer to being in the bottom 7, the bottom 6 of the league. So 7 is CP for me. Cobb?
Yeah, same boat. And it just comes down to, I think Paul's going to make the playoffs, and what team above him do I think is not going to make it? And I think it's going to be CP. I mean, he does have a chance to stick it out, but looking at the points for, I think it's finally going to catch up to CP. So unless CMC can carry him the rest of the way, I think CP misses the playoffs, but he'll be in that 7th spot.
Yeah, I know for me, in terms of like looking at the standings, I know that, Barry and Stu are also there at 4 and 5, but I don't think they're going to make it. I think, I'm looking to go on a streak. I think between CP, Paul, and Ruben, 2 of those 3 are going to make the playoffs, and one's going to be on the outside looking in. Obviously, CP's got that 2-game advantage right now, so it's tough to say. I'm actually, yeah, I'm kind of torn. So I'm going to make it interesting. I'm going to put Ruben on the outside looking in, because if Ruben loses this week and if Paul wins this week, Ruben all of a sudden falls down to that 7th seed. And I think they play each other in 2 weeks. So yeah, I'm going to put Ruben there, but it's tough. It's a coin flip between CP, Ruben, and Paul of which team is outside looking in. So I'll put Ruben right now at my 7.
Lots of intriguing matchups the next few weeks. We'll say that. Okay, so 8th spot for me of the Tomato King rankings is ZT. I just kind of had a little toss and turn on his matchup against Roden. I didn't know who was going to go where. And honestly, once I predicted that game, I was like, okay, that's my 8th spot right there. So 8th spot, ZT, top to bottom, solid team. His team goes where Lamar goes. So Lamar scores a 40. ZT's probably going to win his game. Lamar scores a 17. It's a toss-up if he wins or not. He's got a top-to-bottom good team. George Kittle just came back healthy for the first time since week 1 last week. So, I mean, he's got a solid team. It's a team that could definitely make the playoffs still. So I have him getting this close to the playoffs, but not making it. So 8th spot for ZT in week 10.
Yeah, this one might surprise a few people. I was dogging him pretty hard a little bit ago, but I think I'm going to go Barry, specifically about where he is in the placement with being at 4 and 5. And we're at the time of the year where buys are almost behind us. I'm looking at your starting roster. I'm not really caring about depth. You look at Barry with Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Austin Eckler, one of his tight ends. He's done starting to, hopefully. DJ Moore and David Montgomery, and then whatever he wants to do in the flex. That's a pretty good starting roster. I think it's not the best starting roster, but that's something that you're not gonna, you're not gonna just wipe off as a big easy win. And I think he could do some damage. I think he's made some bad starting calls that have kind of dropped him to 4 and 5. And I think he still should be making moves. I don't know what his deal is with not making moves, but I'm gonna put my faith in Barry for one more week. I'm gonna put him at 8.
Yeah, for me at 8, I have Stu. I just think I think Stu's more active. I think they have the same record. Barry just has more things going on with his team in terms of, potential injuries and guys missing time. And I just think that Stu's the most consistent, owner out of that kind of bottom threshold where I could see him, winning at least 2 more games the rest of the season and just kind of, solidly, not making the playoffs, but also just kind of being on top of that bottom cluster. So yeah, I have Stu at 8.
That's interesting. We all had different guys there. Okay, so for number 9, I have David Roden, a team that I've been a big fan of all season long. He's done a lot of trades, which some of the trades are boneheaded moves. But overall, I like his team. I like what he's building for next year, whether he makes the playoffs or not. He's got the Tampa Bay stack of ears that he's willing to go with next year. I know he makes a lot of trades, so he's telling me one thing, and by the third week of 2022, he's going to be making a deal with Hosh, and it's a completely different team. So I do like Roden's squad. I think he'll win a few games to end the season off, and I think he'll be this close to getting into the playoffs. And like I said, it was one of the first years I actually liked his team top to bottom. Even his depth right now is pretty good. But yeah, I think Roden is my 9 spot for me.
Yeah, my 9th spot is ZT. I think his starting lineup is solid. I don't really think there's a glaring weakness. I don't think, there's definitely some upgrades to be had, but I think he's got to be happy with Lamar at quarterback, even though he has those down weeks. Mike Evans, depending on how long Antonio Brown's out, and Gronk could continue to eat. Kittle's back. I think that's huge for him. I think he looked great coming back last week, and I'm hoping that as long as Garoppolo's staying at quarterback, I think Kittle's going to have a big end of the season. Gibson, just based off his usage, I thought he was going to have a much bigger year than he ended up being. I think Pittman's coming into his own. He's been a blow up for the last couple of weeks lately. And yeah, just starting lineup. I'm just kind of looking at starting lineups for these rankings, and I'm pretty comfortable with ZT. I think if he had the same record as Barry, I probably would have put him above him. But I'm kind of going for final projections here with that 1 game lead on Barry. I'm going to give Barry the edge there. So ZT. I'll have ZT right behind him.
Yeah, for my 9, I have ZT as well. I just think, I know he's a game back from, Barry, and I just think that his roster is just more well-rounded, and it's enough to, it's not sexy, but it's just enough to put up a floor where, he should just fall into a couple wins down the stretch. So yeah, I have ZT at 9.
Interesting. Man, I was looking because you mentioned Lamar's game, and just the media likes to go on these bullshit like things, and they've been just crusade against Mahomes throwing so many picks. He doesn't even lead the league in interceptions anymore. And so I just thought that was interesting because Lamar's got 8 picks, Mahomes has 10 picks. Right now, league leader is Joe Burrow with 11. Just thought that was interesting. Okay, so we're at 10 now. The 10 spot for the Tomato King rankings. 10 spot for me. You guys, I think Alex already said him, but Stu is my 10th spot. It's a solid team. I think going with the full receiver thing that he did, and then his back-to-back of running backs, he missed on both of them. I mean, him and I had a conversation before the season. I was like, you're going to have 2 picks. There's no way you miss on 2 running backs here. He literally missed on both of them. And I told him before the draft that I was like, that Kareem Hunt and Darrell Henderson would be key guys right there. Obviously, Kareem Hunt got hurt, but Kareem Hunt produced better than Etienne did. Etienne didn't even make it to regular season. And then Darrell Henderson's been a solid starter for CP's team, which was in the first spot all season. So Stu made some mistakes, whatever. I think in retrospect, if he drafted those 2 solid running backs and with that DeAndre Hopkins, and Hopkins hasn't panned out either. So take that for what it is. But I think Stu could be in a better place right now if he drafted better. And I think I hope maybe he listens to me better next year for his picks. because it could do something. You know, he wouldn't be in the 10th spot of our Tomato King rankings right now. But yeah, I have Stu at 10 right now.
Yeah, I also have Stu at 10. I think, I think his top part of the team is pretty solid. I mean, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, that's a great stack. I think Kyle Pitts is top 4 tight end in the league, and that's a big bonus every week to have that over your opponent. It's just the rest of that has a lot of question marks. Like Dash just talked about, his running back situation's a mess. Thielen, you're just hoping for his touchdown games. Cole Beasley is between him and Sander. I mean, Beasley's solid for the PPR aspects. And then D-Hop's just been hurt. So that's just been rough. Stu's team just hasn't really come to fruition. And I think it's a little too late now. So I'm going to go Stu at 10.
Alex?
Yeah, my 10th spot, I have Roden sitting here at 10. It was a coin flip for me between Barry and Roden. And for me, what it just comes down to is, ownership. Obviously he's got the game lead, but I just think down the stretch, if I had to rely on someone at the bottom, between two, you always want to bet on the person. If I had to bet between Roden and Barry, I'm going to assume that Roden's going to be a little more active, although they pretty much have the same amount of moves, and Barry actually has used more of his fab. So I could be eating my own words actually by saying that, but I just think also he just has a better roster at the moment. It's not super top heavy, but he's got a better roster. So I'm going to go with Roden at my 10th spot. But that is something to note, him and Barry's inactivity and kind of being at the bottom. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned Barry. That leads us to our 11th spot. So my 11th spot is Barry. I mentioned on the show, I think Adam is the worst team, and I think the second worst team is Barry by a lot. And Cobb made some good points. That's a solid starting lineup, but Barry, how do I put this in a nice way? He won't make the easy move. He's going to do something trying to outsmart whoever is watching it, whether it's me looking at his lineup or someone else. He wants to be like, oh, I started him and I did that. Like, I knew he was going to blow up this week. It's like, dude, just fucking start the best guy available. Why are you trying to have fun with this and trying to say, oh, you knew something that no expert did know, And so that's the game he's constantly fighting. That's why he doesn't do trades, because he doesn't be made fun of for doing a move, which is sad because I think Barry's done some really good moves in this league. We really miss his trades. I know I do. Yeah, I think Barry at 11th spot for me. He's going to lose this week, and there's a big chance he might even be Tomato King. I know based on teams wise, but just by the luck of it, I could totally see Barry being Tomato King, and he's already been Tomato King once, and he's going to have a lot of problems with it if he's a Tomato King and he is enforced to do the penalty again where somebody else get out scot-free of it. So I think there's going to be a lot of trouble there if Barry is Tomato King. So that's where I have it. Cobb.
Yeah. At 11, I'm going to have Roden. You've been a big believer in him. I haven't really been. I don't think his lineup is that great. I think it's decent depth, but I don't think he has a high ceiling. So in most years, maybe I'd have him as Tomato King. He would have been one of the better Tomato Kings, but I think that kind of leaves, I think we all have the same, by far the easiest Tomato King call we've had in years with Adam here. But hopefully Roden proves me wrong. He's a great owner, but I just not buying it right now.
Yeah, I have Barry at my 11th spot. And like I've been mentioning, that just comes down to, I don't like his roster right now. I don't think he's being active. He even has, I think the person who's on his IR spot is active, so he should be able to put him on his roster. He has an empty bench spot right now. And so, yeah, there's just a lot of issues going on with what Barry's been doing. So I don't really trust him right now. I think his head's out of the game. And so I have him at my 11.
So with 12 is Adam Milowich. He's been kind of called out and this crucified in the show a little bit. Is he ever going to win a game again after week 3? He ended up winning a game, so congratulations, Adam. It's a bad team. He knows it. And I think the trade with Derrick Henry is a good start to the rebuild. The last time Adam was, kind of a real deal in this league, he had a top flight running back in Zeke. Hopefully Derrick Henry returns to form next year when he comes back from that foot injury. But yeah, Adam is by far the worst team, and he solidified it this week with his trade to Alex, which is also bullshit because he's playing Alex this week. And Alex really needed to win. So it was almost perfect that Alex went to Adam to try to get him to get rid of his players, which I want to say, I think Alex is probably the one who came to him. I don't think Adam went to you. I think you came to him about that. I can definitely see that happening. But yeah, Adam had a bad team, bad draft, bad keepers, bad everything. And that happens.
Yeah. Same boat. Easy call. I'm again, thank you, Adam, for winning that one game before you blew everything up. But he came in to a season, a lot of question marks. Him and I kind of flew in together the night before the draft, or the day of the draft, sorry, and drove in. And my head was there. I don't think his was, and it kind of showed, just kind of different breeds of owners right there. But unfortunately for Adam, not much else needs to be said. You're locked in for Tomato King. I think you've accepted it by now. So good luck.
Yeah, not much to say. Obviously, he pretty much accepted, the Tomato King punishment in exchange for, getting the first round pick next year. And it's interesting because, in the league that I just started this past year, we have a last place punishment, and ours is the Waffle King, where you spend 24 hours in a Waffle House. The leagues it's pretty much the exact same rules. The only difference in the league is, for us, the last place doesn't get the first pick overall. For us, it's the bottom 6 teams. They compete obviously in the consolation bracket, and the winner of that bracket gets the first overall pick. So it's kind of interesting. Like, we're seeing in my league just kind of the different nuances, where it's like the last place team, they don't want to rebuild because it's like, man, there's no benefit to it at all. Like, they'd rather, and like, the trade deadline for picks was a couple weeks ago, and no one did anything. Obviously, next weekend is the deadline for, to just do trades in general. And teams really are kind of hesitant to do that. And there's actually, it's a big cluster at the bottom of that league right now. So there's like 4 teams kind of battling out, and no one wants to be our Waffle King, because obviously no one wants to do the punishment. And there's no benefit to coming in last place. And people would rather go on a win streak going into the consolation bracket to try to get that first overall pick. So it is kind of interesting, and just kind of seeing the differences. And Adam here clearly knows what it's like, knows that there's a punishment coming his way, but it's kind of risk and rewards. Like, damn, it sucks to be the Tomato King, but at the same time, sometimes you just got to put up with that punishment to get that first overall pick. So yeah, I think he's going all in for it, and I don't think there'll be much competition down the stretch.
So I just said, for my own clarity, so the person who ends up losing that consolation bracket is the Tomato King?
No, so basically at the end of the regular season, whoever's in 12th place at the end of regular season gets the punishment. But then basically the bottom 6 play in the consolation bracket. And so the actual punishment has nothing to do with the consolation bracket. That's just for the picks. So basically it's whoever wins that gets the first pick. Whoever comes in second gets the second pick. And then whoever comes in last place of the consolation bracket gets the 6th pick. And then for, the playoffs, obviously if you win, then you get the 12th. And so it's reverse order of that. So that's how we do it in my league. And so it basically prevents kind of tanking, because there's the only benefit of tanking is there is none. Basically, you can't tank, versus in our league, you tank, you get the first overall pick. But there is kind of like pros and cons to both of them. But it's,
you do that, you're setting yourself up for this, whatever this punishment is.
For the punishment, right? So it's definitely interesting, and something that, in the first year of that league, something that in the offseason we'll probably take a vote on and determine whether we want to keep it this way or kind of go to the format of this league. I wanted to try something different and kind of see how it looked. But I've definitely, one thing I've noticed is some of those teams are definitely hesitant to rebuild just because there's no benefit to coming in last place. Yeah. So
you always got to try something.
Yeah.
But all right, well, that does it for us. So we only got a couple more weeks left of the regular season. So, we always talk about, oh, man, can't wait for fantasy season. And it's like 4 more weeks left of the regular season. Some of us will move on. 6 of us will move on. But it's like, enjoy these last few weekends and, savor it, because, fantasy season only comes around once a year. So definitely enjoy it. But yeah, that does it for us. We're looking forward to seeing you guys next week and see who wins this week and see where the wild card and the 5 and 6 seed standings go. So take it easy, everybody.